And then our last guy here for our season-long contest is Nick Chubb of the Browns. Nick Chubb last season, 190 carries, 1,067 yards, and 12 touchdowns in just 12 games. The different thing with Chubb than these other two guys is that he does have a solid backup that you do have to worry about taking some touches away from him in Kareem Hunt, who I think had over 150 touches last year to Chubb's about 200. And there was that little bit of an injury concern with Chubb as well. But his more or less number is 1,347 and a half. And this is the only one, Nick, that I'm actually like, I think I'm going under with. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Not 100% confidence, but more confident than some of the other unders that we've discussed. Overall, I think Monkey Knife Fight's numbers are relatively conservative. And comparing NFL to other sports, you just have to factor in the potential for injuries so much more than you do in some of the non-heavy contact sports that aren't football. So I understand it. But yeah, this one feels like it's not quite as conservative, I guess, given the injury situation last year with Nick Chubb and given the backup situation with Kareem Hunt. Like, there's really no reason for Cleveland to overextend Nick Chubb more than they have to. I mean, you talk about a team that wants to get to the playoffs and have success in the playoffs and make sure that its number one running back is at his best in the playoffs. I think that's the Cleveland Browns. There's no extra incentive for that team, for Kevin Stefanski to make sure Nick Chubb averages 100 yards per game, or make sure Nick Chubb, goes over in the Monkey Knife Fight contest. They're just focused on keeping him healthy. So I think he's obviously going to be really good. I mean, he has that same kind of wow factor when you watch him run that I mentioned with Dalvin Cook, where it's just like, I can't even imagine like lining up to hit this guy. It would hurt so badly. But they don't have any reason to, plunge him into the line 35 times a game, like you just mentioned with Derrick Henry in Tennessee.
Yeah, and with Chubb too, last year MCL sprain, especially at that position, those skill position guys, you really got to watch out with those knee injuries. He missed 4 games last year. I think he's going to be close to this number that we have, but I do think he's going to fall under. And another interesting a couple interesting notes about Chubb. He was explosive last year. 40.2% of his carries went for over 15 plus yards. Only J.K. Dobbins had a higher rate among running backs with over 100 attempts. So he is a home run threat. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of other stuff to like about this Cleveland Browns team for the first. I mean, it still feels weird. I mean, they've been okay to good now for a couple of years, and it still just feels weird to say, yeah, there's a lot to like about the Cleveland Browns. But Baker Mayfield, who I feel like he's ready to take that next step up. You got Odell Beckham Jr. coming back. You got Jarvis Landry. You got Austin Hooper. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that Cleveland offense. So I'm a little skeptical about Nick Chubb.
Yeah, ultimately a good problem to have. Right. I mean, this roster is, and again, it feels crazy to say the sentence, the Cleveland Browns NFL football team roster is loaded. But it is, some of it is hitting on draft picks. Some of it is the free agency signings they made. Obviously the trade a few years ago for Odell Beckham. There's a lot to like all over the roster. And yeah, maybe that leads to some kind of stat cannibalization at certain positions, but man, yeah, this roster is built to contend for, if not win, the AFC North this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you're drafting in the top 10 so many years in a row, eventually you got to hit. I mean, maybe the Edmonton Oilers and the NHL can take some notes there because they just are an absolute dumpster fire. And good luck to your Jacksonville Jaguars as well, because you guys have been doing that kind of thing too. But I know you're not feeling too great after that.
No, well, first of all, I don't know anything about hockey. So, sure, great point on the Oilers, possibly.
Thank you.
The Jaguars... Man, I don't know if you watched that game last night. I was so pumped for this season. I was fairly encouraged by some things I saw week 1. That was like such a same old Jaguars game from start to finish. Like even in the fourth quarter, we got guys dropping touchdown passes from the third string quarterback. Minshew looked terrible. Lawrence is holding the ball way too long. They're just running the 31 dive over and over. I don't know. I've gone from like 16-1 down to like 4-13 for my Jaguars prediction now.
Big drop off.
Yeah, completely going the other way.
Maybe they're saving it for the regular season. Don't want to tip their hand. Back to Nick Chubb though. There is one other contest on Monkey Knife Fight regarding Chubb, more or less 12 and a half touchdowns. He had 12 last season. How do you feel about that one?
That one to me seems a little bit more realistic as a potential over. 12 touchdowns in 12 games. So first of all, if you think he stays healthy, very good chance to go over on that. Although you're getting a full season now of Kareem Hunt as that backup. So maybe he loses a couple of those if Hunt, is available for all those games last year. Again, if he stays healthy, he's going over. I don't worry so much about the touchdowns as opposed to the yardage, where it's somewhat of a luck type of statistic where if Baker Mayfield completes a 79-yard pass to Odell Beckham and he's pushed out at the 1 yard line, that's probably a Nick Chubb easy 1 yard touchdown. You don't look at that as like, we can't give him this carry to protect his workload. Whereas with the yardage, that's where you worry about Kareem Hunt, taking a full series, or maybe Nick Chubb sitting week 17. But the touchdowns, to me, there's a little bit more variance there. You're not going to necessarily have fewer touchdowns because you're trying to protect a running back's workload. And the fact that he was able to average a touchdown per game last year, to me, again, if you believe he can stay healthy, I would have a pretty easy time going over here.
Yeah, he's a big back. He's not one of these little gadget, skill backs. He's gonna get those goal line touches. And right. I mean, as you mentioned, with the possibility of a huge Odell Beckham Jr. play and then vulturing that touchdown in the end at the 1, I call that the Aaron Jones effect, because he has screwed me in fantasy so many times over a couple seasons as the guy just gets so many touches.